Welcome back to the I Can Do Anything podcast. My name is Colin. Tonight I'm talking about 3 games from last night. The first TNT game was the Golden State Warriors and the Toronto Raptors. For as much build-up as there was around this game, and for Steph and Draymond both being out, it was an awesome, really fun game to watch. The final score was 131-128. Durant finished with 51 points, shot 58% from the field, 18 of 31. Just the fact that he's taking 31 shots in a game. Clay had 23 and took 20 shots. Just the fact that it's interesting how in the middle of, we're still in the first quarter of the NBA season, and now that Steph's out, Durant's taken 31 shots, and just the fact that he's taking that many shots in a game and has taken over the last couple games right around that area, and I think maybe even more shots in a couple of the games. I think he may have been up around 40 shots in a couple of the games, but it's interesting how that fuels a lot of the talks around free agency for next season. There's so much great basketball being played, and I get that that's like a lot of the storyline that people want to make. I don't know what that is about human nature that we just want to look ahead to the next breakup or to the next phase of a career or a life or whatever it is. But I had something stuck in my throat. I think it was a little leftover piece of peanut. But the Raptors and Warriors game overall was very, very entertaining. The Raptors played really well, and led by 15 or 16 or so, somewhere in that area for a good majority of the game. They got out to a hot start and were up big to start the game. But Durant's 51 fueled a comeback where Golden State had opportunities to win the game. But I think it was a really big win for the Raptors. Now, it may not mean a whole lot. Let's say if a lot of people were, during the game last night, there was a lot of talk about it being a possible NBA Finals matchup or a preview of this year's NBA Finals. And that very well could be, but Steph Curry is the MVP of that team, and Draymond is the heart and soul of that team. Kevin Durant's not going to score 51 every night. He's got the ability to do it, but it's not going to happen every single night. Now, the good thing for the Warriors is that they've got 3 guys that are capable of scoring 50 in a given night, and 3 of them have. There was a stat read last night. It was either the play-by-play or the color commentator said something about the Warriors are the first team to have 3 people score 50 points in a certain stretch of game or a season, or I don't remember exactly what the stat is, but that just goes to tell you that, it took the Raptors a really hot start. Kawhi Leonard had 37, Pascal Siakam had 26, Serge Ibaka 20, Danny Green shot the ball 50% from the field and from 3, which is not very good for him. 50% is fine. It's not horrible, but Kyle Lowry only had 10. That kind of surprises me. He seemed like he was playing really well, and Kyle Lowry and Kawhi Leonard both had really big plays on defense down the stretch in overtime that helped seal the win for them. But I just don't think that it'll be nearly that close of a series if it were to be the NBA Finals matchup. But I think Kawhi, that thing's still stuck in my throat. I think Kawhi proved last night that he's a really, it's stupid saying this because Durant had 51 points, but I think Kawhi is a formidable matchup for Kevin Durant, and he might be the closest thing to a Kevin Durant stopper, again, even though Durant had 51 points last night. So moving along, let's see. Do I have anything else from that game? Now, moving along to the Lakers and the Pacers, I wasn't able to watch this game due to the blackout, the regional blackout on League Pass. I can't watch Pacers games because they are the regional television market or whatever. I'm in their regional television market. So the League Pass blocks out the games for 3 days. So I got to wait 3 days, which means I most likely won't get around to watching this Lakers-Pacers game. From what I understand, I did listen to a little bit of Talk Sports today. It seems like the narrative around this is the one benefit that I think being able to, or in general listening to other people talk about sports, or just basketball, I guess in general, is that it is fun to talk about some of the same crazy ideas or storylines, or for the most part, these storylines are made by reporters and then they trickle down to whichever network heads or TV hosts or in studio talk radio people pick up the storylines from different reporters and make it their own or whatever. So it is fun to, you go to First Take and they're talking about a narrative, and they all generally, I think there's obviously some unique things to each sports show, and there's unique, they're all done by different people with different backgrounds and viewpoints on the world and on sports and on different athletes and on different teams and cities and all of that. So it's all just different perspectives. So there's going to be variety and difference and nuance to listening to anybody talk about any topic. But I think for the most part, they do generally talk about a lot of the same narratives, I guess, in sports. The narrative that I saw with the Lakers was that, does LeBron need to carry the team? Does LeBron have to do a load of the scoring? And I mean, last night he finished with 38 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. And the snippet that I heard played was Magic talking about not wanting LeBron to have to carry the load like he did the last 2-3 years in Cleveland, really like he's done every year in Cleveland, basically. Minus maybe the year that they won the championship where Kyrie and Kevin Love both also played really well. But to that, he averaged a triple-double in the NBA Finals in that year. So, I mean, you could argue that he was still carrying the load that year. But regardless, the talk, I guess, was around LeBron not being a great off the ball player. And I don't know that, I get it. He's probably not as good off the ball as on the ball, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden now LeBron's no good and that you just don't want a team with LeBron on it where LeBron isn't the main ball handler or creating a lot of what happens on offense. I think he can be fucking incredible still as a slasher. If he had somebody of, well, I was going to say somebody of his caliber on his team, but that's not going to happen. Although I think if he were to have Anthony Davis and, let's say he had Damian Lillard. Let's just be crazy and say that I'm still doing that. I still got to get used to him being on the Lakers. Let's just say that the Lakers roster next season, their starting rotation was Damian Lillard or a guy like Kemba Walker or a proven, it's funny to say that because that's what Rajon Rondo is, although he's not a scorer and not a shooter. And I do think that you have to have shooting around LeBron just to space the floor out for him, because if you don't, they're just going to key on him and make the other players beat him. But let's say the roster is Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, LeBron, and whoever the fuck else. Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, whatever. One of those two probably. That's a team LeBron could play off the ball. I don't. He would be incredible off the ball, and part of that is because that team would be incredible in general. But he'd be amazing off the ball. I don't like the narrative that LeBron just isn't that good as an off the ball player. I think that's ridiculous. I think that he's needed to be on ball so much and so ball dominant on every team because they've all been really reliant on him. I think for the most, like he did a lot of the ball handling in Miami, but he certainly did. This year he's doing less ball handling and he's less ball dominant already than he was last year. And I think Miami, he was still very ball dominant, but that was the least ball dominant that he ever was in Miami. And they won 2 championships. I don't have any stats to back that up. I don't know how you measure ball dominance. I guess it's measured by there are so many fucking stats that they keep and just things that they keep an eye on, and like usage rate. I don't know what the hell that is or how they measure it, but that's kind of why I came up with, or I guess sort of without even realizing it, how I came up with this little MVP matrix. And that's all that is. It's some advanced analytic statistic that's not really that advanced because I suck at math and analytics and all that stuff. It's like a dumb guy's analytics, but I don't think that I really buy that narrative. But it seems like last night in the Pacer game, Brandon Ingram and other guys were just not really cutting it. I just pulled up the box score now. Kuzma had 11, McGee had 6, Ingram had 14, Lonzo Ball had 2, Josh Hart came off the little schneid and scored 13 off the bench, and Caldwell Pope had 11. I mean, that's not enough support. You got 4 guys in double figures. Well, you had 5 if you include LeBron in double figures. The other 4 were 11, 14, 13, and 11. It's just like not enough help. And LeBron shouldered all the load towards the end of the game when these guys were not playing well throughout the game. And just from what I don't really know much about, like, as far as like quarter to quarter what the score was or anything like that. I watched LeBron's highlights from the game, and that's all that I watched. But it seems like they weren't cutting it, and so LeBron said, okay, give me the ball back, I'll take over, and then made a bunch of stuff happen. Now, he did get a lot of support in rebounding. He had 9 rebounds, but Kuzma had 9, JaVale had 8, Brandon Ingram only had 1, but Lonzo Ball, who's a great rebounder for a guard, had 8, and then Tyson Chandler off the bench had 9. There were some 2s and some 1s scattered around there, but yeah, I guess that's how I think that last night was an important win for the Lakers. You don't want to lose 3 in a row anytime, but especially to the teams that they were losing to. The Pacers were without Victor Oladipo, so I think losing that game, although the Pacers have been playing really well, I think that game, it was a really important win for them. Okay, moving along to the third game of the night, the second TNT game, the national television game. I said last night, I can't believe the Kings are on national television, and they're now 10-11 after losing last night. But I believe last night, if I pull up the standings, they mentioned that even though they're like 5th to last in the West, they were only 4 games back last night. Now they're 5 games back because they lost to the team that was first. So the difference between Houston is second to last and Phoenix is last in the West. Phoenix is 11 games back, and then Houston is 5.5 games back. And then, I mean, the West is so incredibly close. I don't know how that works. If the West has played a lot of each other, or if they've played a lot of the East, or if they're all, I don't know, because then you go to the East and Denver or Toronto is in first, and then Milwaukee, who's second, is 3 games back. And then you get to Charlotte, who's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sixth in the East. They're 7 games back, and then Washington's 10 games back. Chicago's 13 and a half games back and is tied with Atlanta and Cleveland for last. But I guess that goes to I don't know whether that means the East is stronger or one is. I don't necessarily know what to take away from it, but it was a good. I mean, I guess the takeaway is that any team in the West could be fun to watch on any given night because Utah is third to last and was expected to be great this year. Although I did find out that stat from Ben yesterday was really interesting. I didn't realize that they had played all of the top teams essentially in the West or in the league, I guess, in general. But you got them in Houston who are second and third to last, and then Phoenix is pretty terrible. But like all these teams are really interesting to watch. I guess my biggest takeaway last night from the Sacramento team was I didn't realize, like, they talked a lot about just the young core and this whole how the franchise is really excited about this young group for the first time in a long time. That the team that hasn't made what was that stat? I don't know how to word it. They haven't made the playoffs in the longest amount of time. They're in the longest drought of the playoffs of any NBA team. There you go. So I was just sort of impressed at all the young talent. I mean, they've got Ben McLemore, who didn't even play, and a guy that I thought could be a pretty good guard in the NBA. Frank Mason, who has been a good starting guard for them until they got De'Aaron Fox, and De'Aaron Fox overwhelmingly deserves to be starting. But just the fact that Marvin Bagley isn't even starting. Justin Jackson, who apparently isn't a good shooter. I didn't really know that. I always kind of thought of him as a pretty good outside shooter. Was 2 of 3 last night from 3, and 3 of 4, scored 8 points in only 11 minutes. And then they had Bogdan Bogdanovic, who was a great EuroLeague player, and I believe it was Croatia maybe, or wherever Dario Saric is from. I can't remember what country that is. Why am I drawing a blank on that? But I didn't even know. I thought Bogdan Bogdanovic was like some big ugly like Russian guy or some big ugly foreign guy, but he was just like a clean looking young. He's a good guard. That guy is, and I don't know how young he is. I guess I can just click on this little name of his here and look at how old he is. Oh, he's my age. He's 26. Huh. Yeah, I mean, he could be really good for them. He has, from what I understood last night, he hasn't been playing a ton this season, but he had a great night last night. Had 26 on 40% shooting, 50% from 3, shot 8 free throws, had 6 assists and only 1 turnover. That's a great night for him. De'Aaron Fox had 17. Cauley Stein is a great energy guy for them, had 17. Buddy Hield, who is their leading scorer, only had 10 last night. But it was a great game for the most part. I wasn't expecting it to be as close as it was. I didn't really know, I guess, how good of a start the Kings have gotten off to. I don't think I've watched any Kings games. I may have watched one early on, but the Clippers looked really, really good. That was my first full Clippers game. And Tobias Harris, I think I'm going to add to I think he deserves to be added to the MVP matrix for next week because of where he's got this team according to the expectations for this team going into the year. Maybe they expected to be good. I would assume that they didn't expect to be this good, but Montrezl Harrell looks fucking great for them and is in a lot of ways playing way better than DeAndre Jordan was. I know that Reggie Miller touched on, the production from the center position, and he may not affect the game defensively quite the same way. I mean, he still does he just kind of does it differently around the rim. DeAndre Jordan was a great rim protector, and Montrezl Harrell is better at switching out on pick and rolls than DeAndre Jordan probably was. Although DeAndre Jordan, for his huge size, was really, really good at that. Avery Bradley last night had a great game, shot the ball extremely well, 4 of 7 from 3, 6 of 10 from the field. And going into that game, he was shooting 19% from the three-point range. Gortat, who I've never really been high on, seems to fit in really well with them and just plays his role. They talked a lot about last night. I believe it was Kevin Harlan and Reggie Miller talked a lot about how this team is just a bunch of, it's a team without any stars, and it's just a bunch of guys that fit into roles perfectly. And I think Tobias Harris is their best scorer. Maybe, you could say Lou Williams is their best scorer, but I think all around Tobias Harris is their version of a superstar. I don't think Tobias Harris is, and he may be emerging into one, but he is certainly the closest thing they've got to a superstar and somebody that they are going to continue to lean on for scoring. But I'm going to put him in the MVP matrix. I don't think, just based on his season numbers, which I want to say he's averaging like around 19 a game. 21 after last night, 21.7 per game, 8 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, 0.5 blocks per game. I don't know that he will in the Matrix. I don't know that. That's a funny thing to say. In the Matrix, I don't know how he will fare. In the Matrix, I don't know that he will be all that high up. Although he is shooting, he may be fine. He's shooting 52% from the field, 44% from 3. I think he could, according to the Matrix, and given their win percentage, he may be actually kind of high up in the Matrix. Yeah, he's definitely going to go in, and for as long, I talked about this yesterday, but once somebody's in the Matrix now, I'm going to just leave them there and see where they fare, and then just do my top 6 every night, every Thursday. Yeah, the Clippers just have a lot of, like I talked about yesterday, a lot of just non-household names, a bunch of guys that are humble and just kind of go about their business. Their rookie from Kentucky, the starting point guard, whose name is long as hell and I can't remember. I didn't even really know that he was from Kentucky. Like, I just kind of thought he was from some mid-major school. I didn't really watch. I don't know that I even I probably watched a couple Kentucky games last basketball season, but I wasn't really. I don't follow the college recruiting classes nearly as closely as I followed them, like, say, when I was in high school, or even when I was in college. I followed them like religiously when I was in high school because I wanted to be on one. But yeah, he kind of took me by surprise. But again, just another really like solid, not overwhelming you with a jump shot, but gets to the rim. Is just an all around. He gets other people involved. He just can do a lot of different things, and is a humble, quiet guy who, can lead if he has to. I think this Clippers team. I don't expect them to play this well all season. They're gonna hit a rough patch or two, but I found it interesting last night. They said, Reggie Miller, I think, said, if this team is able to, he said, I think they'll be a playoff team. And that's probably the first time, like, ever that through, how many games are we through now? Like 20 some games? The Clippers are 15-6. So yeah, 21 games. Through 21 games, a team is in first and someone says, I think they'll make the playoffs. This is the first team that's probably ever happened to. Yeah, I'm out. It's time for me to make some food and go to sleep and wake up early and do the morning news for the radio, because once again, I can do anything, and I believe that you can too. Thanks for listening.